Hello, Leah Grace, Elkins Jarrett, and Eddie Price, and Ellis, although you're probably a little bit too little for a story. Here's another story by Grandpa Papa, and this is the story of the three pigs. Hope you like it. Once upon a time, there was an old pig with three little pigs, and one day she said to them,
My children, it is time for you to go out in the world and seek your fortunes.
So, bidding their mother goodbye, the three little pigs set out to earn their living. The first little pig, whose name was Whitey, met a man with a bundle of straw and said to him,
Please, mister, will you give me that straw to build a house with?
The man gave Whitey the straw, and he built himself a house with it. Presently a wolf came along and knocked at the door of Whitey's house.
Little pig, he said, let me come in.
But of course Whitey didn't want the wolf to come in, so he said,
No, by the hair on my chin.
This made the wolf very angry, and he said,
I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
So he huffed and he puffed and he blew the house in, and he carried poor little Whitey away to his home in the forest. Oh no! The second little pig, whose name was Blacky, met a man carrying some wood, and he said to him,
Please, mister, will you give me that wood to build a house with?
And the man gave Blacky the wood, and he built himself a house with it. But along came the wolf and knocked at the door of Blacky's house.
Little pig, he said, let me come in.
No,
replied Blacky in a great fright.
not by the hairs on my chin.
And I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
So the wolf puffed and he huffed, and at last he blew the house in, and he took Blacky away to his home in the forest. Now the third little pig, whose name was Brownie, met a man with a load of bricks, and he said to him,
Please, mister, will you give me those bricks to build my house with?
And the man gave him the bricks, and Brownie built himself a very snug little house with the bricks. He just finished his house when the wolf came along.
Little pig, he said, let me come in.
No, by the hair on my chin.
Then I'll puff and I'll huff and I'll blow your house in. But though the wolf puffed and he huffed and he huffed and he puffed, he could not blow down that brick house. So he said,
Little pig, I know where there is a nice field of turnips.
Where?
asked Brownie.
Over in Mr. Smith's field. If you will be ready tomorrow morning, I will call for you, and we can go together and get some dinner.
Very well,
answered Brownie.
I will be ready. What time do you want to go?
Around 6 o'clock, answered the wolf. Well, do you know that smart little pig got up at 5 o'clock and went out and got the turnips and was back home before the wolf came to knock at his door at 6 o'clock? When the wolf found out that Brownie had been to Mr. Smith's field before him, he was very angry, and he wondered how he could catch him. So he said,
Little pig, I know where there is some nice apple orchards. Where? Asked Brownie. Down at Merry Garden, replied the wolf. I will go with you tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, and we can get some apples.
But Brownie hustled and bustled around and went the next morning at 4 o'clock to the apple orchard. This time he had to go farther, and he had to go to climb a tree, so that just as he was getting down with the apples in his basket, he saw the wolf coming. Of course, he was very frightened. But when the wolf came up to the tree and said to Brownie,
Ah, I see you are here before me. Are they very nice apples?
Yes, indeed,
replied Brownie.
Here, I will throw you one down.
and he threw an apple so far that while the wolf ran to pick it up, the little pig jumped down the tree and ran home as fast as his legs could carry him. Now, the wolf was very, very angry, and he thought and thought, and finally thought of a plan to catch the little pig. Coming to his house the next morning, he said,
Little pig, there is a fair in the town this afternoon. Will you go?
Oh, yes,
replied Brownie. I will be very glad to go. What time do you want me to be ready?
At 3 o'clock, said the wolf. But Brownie went off to the fair at 1 o'clock and bought a great big copper kettle. Alas, on the way home with the kettle, he saw the wolf coming up the hill. Poor little Brownie, he didn't know what to do. And then suddenly he jumped into his copper kettle and gave himself a push, and the kettle went rolling over and over and over, with the little pig inside it. When the wolf saw the kettle coming, rolling down the hill towards him, he was so frightened that he turned and ran back home without going to the fair. The next day he stopped at the little pig's house and told him how frightened he'd been by a great shining thing that had rolled down the hill towards him. Then Brownie laughed and laughed and said to the wolf,
Ha ha ha! I frightened you, Mr. Wolf. I had been to the fair already, and I bought a copper kettle. And when I saw you coming, I got into it and I rolled down the hill and tried to squash you.
This made the wolf so very angry that he jumped on the roof of the little pig's house and tried to climb down the chimney. But when Brownie saw this, he made a blazing fire in the fireplace and hung the copper kettle over it full of scalding, boiling water. And just as the wolf came down the chimney, the little pig pulled off the cover of the kettle, and plop! Into the scalding water fell the wolf. So Brownie boiled the wolf, and then went out and rescued his two brothers, Whitey and Blackie, from the forest where the wolf had been keeping them and was going to eat them for his supper. And all the three pigs lived happily together in the little brick house for ever and ever. What a lovely story! I hope you enjoyed that story by Grandpa or Papa, Leah Grace and Eddie Price. Now go to bed and have a long, long sleep, and we'll see you in the morning. Night night.